A Treatise on White Magic by Alice Bailey. The Great Invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. The preceding invocation or prayer constitutes the exclusive property of no single individual or group, but belongs rather to all humanity. The beauty and potency of this invocation reside in its simplicity, and in its articulation of certain fundamental truths which all men, innately and naturally, acknowledge. The truth of the existence of a foundational intelligence to whom we tentatively ascribe the name of God. The truth that, behind all outer appearances, the motivating force of the cosmos is love. The truth that a great individuality came to earth, referred to by Christians as the Christ, and embodied that love so that we might comprehend it. The truth that both love and intelligence are effects of what is termed the will of God. And finally, the self-evident truth that only through humanity itself can the divine plan be brought to fruition. Alice Bailey. Extract from a statement by the Tibetan. Let it suffice to state that I am a Tibetan disciple of a certain degree. This, however, conveys little, for all are disciples, ranging from the humblest aspirant up to and beyond the Christ himself. I reside within a physical body, much like other men, situated on the frontiers of Tibet, and at times I preside over a large group of Tibetan lamas, when my other duties permit. It is this fact that has given rise to the report that I am an abbot of this particular lamasery. Those associated with me in the work of the hierarchy know me by yet another name and office. Alice Bailey is aware of my identity and recognizes me by two of my appellations. I am a brother of yours who has traversed the path a little longer than the average student and has, consequently, incurred weightier responsibilities. I am one who has struggled and fought his way into a greater measure of illumination than has the aspirant who reads this article, and I must, therefore, act as a transmitter of the light, regardless of the cost. I am not an old man, as age is reckoned among the teachers, yet neither am I young nor inexperienced. My work is to teach and disseminate the knowledge of the ageless wisdom wherever I can find a response, and I have been engaged in this task for many years. I seek also to assist the Master M. and the Master Kuthum whenever the opportunity arises, for I have long been connected with them and their work. In all of the foregoing, I have told you much, yet at the same time, I have disclosed nothing that would lead you to offer me that blind obedience and foolish devotion which the emotional aspirant proffers to the Guru and Master whom he is as yet unable to contact. Nor will he achieve that desired contact until he has transmuted emotional devotion into unselfish service to humanity, rather than to the Master. The books I have written are sent forth with no demand for their acceptance. They may or may not be correct, true, and useful. It remains for you to ascertain their veracity through right practice and the exercise of the intuition. Neither I nor Alice Bailey is in the least interested in having them acclaimed as inspired writings, or in having anyone refer to them as the work of one of the masters. If they present truth in such a manner that it follows sequentially upon that already offered in the world teachings, and if the information provided elevates the aspiration and the will to serve from the plane of the emotions to that of the mind, then they will have served their purpose. If the teaching conveyed evokes a response from the illumined mind of the worker in the world and brings about a flashing forth of his intuition, then let that teaching be accepted. But not otherwise. If the statements meet with eventual corroboration, or are deemed true under the test of the law of correspondences, then that is well and good. However, should this not be the case, let not the student accept what is said. August 1934. Rule 1. The solar angel gathers himself, dissipates not his force but, in deep meditation, communicates with his reflection. Some basic assumptions. We are embarking upon a course of study wherein the entire inclination will be to cast the student back upon his own resources, and thus upon that greater self which has, in most instances, made its presence perceived only at rare and highly emotional intervals. When the self is known rather than simply felt, and when the realization is mental as well as sensory, then truly can the aspirant be prepared for initiation. I wish to emphasize that I predicate my words upon certain fundamental assumptions which, for the sake of clarity, I desire briefly to articulate. Firstly, that the student is sincere in his aspiration and is determined to proceed regardless of the reaction of, and upon, the lower self. Only those who can clearly differentiate between the two aspects of their nature, the real self and the illusory self, can work intelligently. This has been well expressed in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Experience arises from the inability of the soul to distinguish between the personal self and the purusa. The objective forms exist for the use and experience of the spiritual man. Through meditation upon this, the intuitive perception of the spiritual man arises. The 48th Sutra in the same book provides a statement covering a later stage of this discriminative realization. This discerning quality is fostered by a recollected attitude of mind and by careful attention to the method of a constant review of one's life. Secondly, I act upon the assumption that all have lived long enough and battled sufficiently with the deterrent forces of life to have enabled them to develop a fairly accurate sense of values. I assume they are endeavoring to live as those who comprehend something of the true eternal values of the soul. They are not to be deterred by any occurrences affecting the personality, nor by the pressure of time and circumstance, nor by age or physical disability. They have wisely learned that enthusiastic rushing forward and violent, energetic progress have their drawbacks, and that a steady, regular, persistent endeavor will carry them further in the long run. Spasmodic spurts of effort and temporary pressure dissipate into disappointment and a burdensome sense of failure. It is the tortoise, rather than the hare, that arrives first at the goal, although both eventually achieve it. Thirdly, I assume that those who seriously dedicate themselves to benefiting from the instructions in this book are prepared to fulfill the simple requirements: to read what is written thoughtfully, to attempt to organize their minds, and to adhere to their meditation work. The organization of the mind is a continuous undertaking, and the application of the mind to the task at hand throughout one's daily avocations constitutes the optimal method to render study and meditation periods fruitful and to bring about fitness for the vocation of disciple. With these assumptions clearly understood, my words are intended for those who seek to measure up to the need for trained servers. I say not, you will note, those who do measure up. Intention and effort are considered by us to be of prime importance and are the two main requisites for all disciples, initiates, and masters, in addition to the power of persistence. In our consideration of these rules, I am not so much interested in their application to the magical work itself as in training the magician and in developing him from the standpoint of his own character. Subsequently, we may address the application of knowledge regarding the external manifestation of world forces. However, our immediate objective differs. I seek to engage the minds and brains of students regarding the higher self, thereby intensifying their mental focus so that sufficient impetus is generated to propel them forward. Furthermore, let it not be forgotten that once the magic of the soul is grasped by the personality, the soul steadily assumes dominion and may be trusted to conduct the individual's training to fruition, unencumbered by concepts of time and space, or by ignorance of the soul's past trajectory. It must be constantly remembered that, when dealing with individuals, the requisite work is twofold. First, to instruct them on how to align the personal lower self with the overshadowing soul, ensuring that within the physical brain there exists an assured consciousness regarding the reality of that divine fact. This knowledge renders the hitherto assumed reality of the three worlds futile to attract or bind, and constitutes the initial step out of the fourth and into the fifth kingdom. Second, to provide such practical instruction as will enable the aspirant to understand his own nature. This necessitates some knowledge of past teachings regarding the constitution of man, alongside an appreciation for the interpretations of modern Eastern and Western investigators. Control the forces of his own nature and acquire understanding of the forces surrounding him. Enable him to so unfold his latent powers that he may address his specific problems, stand independently, manage his own life, resolve his own difficulties, and become so strong and poised in spirit that he compels recognition of his fitness to be acknowledged as a worker in the plan of evolution, as a white magician, and as one of that band of consecrated disciples whom we term the hierarchy of our planet. Students of these matters are, therefore, urged to expand their concept of that hierarchy of souls to include all exoteric fields of human life. They are implored not to narrow the concept, as many do, to only those who have established their own specific organizations, or to those working purely on the subjective side of life along what conservatives recognize as so-called religious or spiritual lines. All endeavors that tend to elevate the status of humanity on any plane of manifestation constitute religious work and possess a spiritual goal. For matter is but spirit on the lowest plane, and spirit, we are told, is but matter on the highest. All is spirit, and these differentiations are merely products of the finite mind. Consequently, all workers and knowers of God, whether within or without fleshly bodies, and working in any field of divine manifestation, form part of the planetary hierarchy and are integral units in that great cloud of witnesses who serve as onlookers and observers. They possess the power of spiritual insight or perception in addition to objective or physical vision. In studying Rule 1, we may summarize it simply yet profoundly with the following terms: egoic communication, cyclic meditation, coordination or at-one-ment. The rules commence in a treatise on cosmic fire with a brief summary of the process and a statement regarding the nature of the white magician. In this initial consideration of our subject, I wish to briefly enumerate the facts presented in the commentary, to demonstrate to the aspirant how much is offered for his consideration and aid, provided he knows how to read and ponder upon that which he reads. The brief exegesis of Rule 1 provides the following statements. The white magician is one who is in touch with his soul. He is receptive to and aware of the purpose and the plan of his soul. He is capable of receiving impressions from the realm of spirit and of registering them in his physical brain. It is further stated that white magic works from above downwards, is the result of solar vibration, and therefore of egoic energy, is not an effect of the vibration of the form side of life, being divorced from emotion and mental impulse. The downflow of energy from the soul is the result of constant internal recollectedness. Concentrated one-pointed communication by the soul with the mind and the brain. Steady meditation upon the plan of evolution. The soul is, therefore, in deep meditation during the whole cycle of physical incarnation, which is the only aspect concerning the student here. This meditation is rhythmic and cyclic in nature, as is all else in the cosmos. The soul breathes, and its form lives thereby. When the communication between the soul and its instrument is conscious and steady, the man becomes a white magician. Therefore, workers in white magic are invariably, and by the very nature of things, advanced human beings, for it requires many cycles of lives to train a magician. The soul dominates its form through the medium of the sutratma or life thread, vitalizes its triple instrument, and thus establishes communication with the brain. Through the brain, consciously controlled, the man is galvanized into intelligent activity on the physical plane. The foregoing constitutes a brief analysis of the first rule for magic, and I would suggest that in the future, as students meditate on the rules, they construct such an analysis themselves. If they perform this during their consideration of each rule, they will approach the entire subject with greater interest and knowledge. They will also spare themselves much retrospective searching and referencing. It will be observed from a consideration of the above analysis that a very clear summation is provided, and that the student initiates his study of magic with a concise understanding of the past situation, his equipment, and the method of approach. Let us realize from the outset the simplicity of the concept intended to be conveyed by my previous remarks. Just as in the past the instrument and its relation to the outer world have been the paramount facts in the experience of the spiritual man, so now it is possible for a readjustment to occur wherein the outstanding fact will be the spiritual man, the solar angel or soul. It will also be realized that his relationship will be to the inner as well as the outer worlds. Man has hitherto included in his relations only the form side of the field of average human evolution. He has utilized it and has been dominated by it. He has also suffered from it and, consequently, in time has revolted, through utter satiety, from all that pertains to the material world. Dissatisfaction, disgust, distaste, and a deep fatigue are characteristics frequently observed in those verging on discipleship. For what is a disciple? He is one who seeks to learn a new rhythm, to enter a new field of experience, and to follow in the steps of that advanced humanity who have trodden the path ahead of him, leading from darkness to light, from the unreal to the real. He has tasted the joys of life in the world of illusion and has learned of their powerlessness to satisfy and hold him. Now he stands in a state of transition between the new and the old states of being. He vibrates between the condition of soul awareness and form awareness. He is seeing double. His spiritual perception grows slowly and surely as the brain becomes capable of illumination from the soul, via the mind. As the intuition develops, the radius of awareness expands and new fields of knowledge unfold. The first field of knowledge receiving illumination might be described as comprising the totality of forms found within the three worlds of human endeavor: etheric, astral, and mental. The would-be disciple, through this process, becomes aware of his lower nature and begins to realize the extent of his imprisonment and the modifications of the versatile psychic nature. The hindrances to achievement and the obstacles to progress are revealed to him, and his problem becomes specific. Consequently, he frequently arrives at the position in which Arjuna found himself. Confronted by adversaries who are those of his own household, confused regarding his duty, and dispirited as he seeks to establish equilibrium between the pairs of opposites. At such a juncture, his invocation should be the renowned prayer of India, uttered by the heart, comprehended by the intellect, and supplemented by a fervent life of service to humanity. Unveil to us the face of the true spiritual sun, hidden by a disk of golden light, that we may know the truth and do our whole duty as we journey to thy sacred feet. As he perseveres and contends, surmounting his problems and bringing his desires and thoughts under subjugation, the second field of knowledge is revealed. Knowledge of the self in the spiritual body, knowledge of the ego as it expresses itself through the medium of the causal body, the Karana Sarira, and awareness of that source of spiritual energy which constitutes the motivating impulse behind the lower manifestation. The disk of golden light is pierced. The true sun is perceived. The path is discovered, and the aspirant struggles forward into ever clearer illumination. As the knowledge of the self and the consciousness of that which the self sees, hears, knows, and contacts become stabilized, the master is found. His group of disciples is contacted. The plan for the immediate portion of work he must assume is realized and gradually executed upon the physical plane. Thus, the activity of the lower nature diminishes, and the individual enters, by degrees, into conscious contact with his master and his group. However, this ensues only upon the lighting of the lamp, the alignment of the lower with the higher, and the downflow of illumination to the brain. It is imperative that these points be grasped and studied by all aspirants so that they may take the requisite steps and develop the desired awareness. Until this is accomplished, the master, however willing he may be, remains powerless. He can take no measures to admit a man to his group, and thus encompass him within his auric influence, making him an outpost of his consciousness. Every step of the way must be undertaken by the man himself, for there exists no abbreviated or facile road out of darkness into light. The way of the disciple. The white magician is invariably one who, through conscious alignment with his ego, with his angel, is receptive to his plans and purposes, and is thereby capable of receiving the higher impression. We must bear in mind that while magic operates from above downwards and is the result of solar vibration, rather than impulses emanating from one or another of the lunar pitris, the downflow of the impressing energy from the solar pitri is the result of his internal recollectedness. It is the consequence of the indrawing of his forces prior to projecting them with concentration toward his shadow, man, and his steadfast meditation upon the purpose and the plan. It may prove beneficial for the student to recall here that the ego remains in deep meditation throughout the entire cycle of physical incarnation. This meditation is cyclic in nature. The pitri involved transmits rhythmic streams of energy to his reflection, which streams are recognized by the individual concerned as his high impulses, his dreams, and his aspirations. Therefore, it becomes apparent why workers in white magic are invariably advanced and spiritual men, for the reflection is seldom responsive to the ego or the solar angel until many cycles of incarnation have transpired. The solar pitri communicates with his shadow or reflection by means of the sutratma, which descends through the bodies to a point of entrance in the physical brain, if I may so phrase it. Yet the man, as yet, cannot focus or see clearly in any direction. If he looks backward, he perceives only the fogs and miasmas of the planes of illusion and fails to be interested. If he looks forward, he discerns a distant light which attracts him, but he cannot as yet distinguish that which the light reveals. If he looks around, he sees but shifting forms and the cinematograph of the form side of life. If he looks within, He sees the shadows cast by the light and becomes aware of much impedimenta which must be discarded before the light he perceives in the distance can be approached and subsequently enter within him. Then, he may know himself as light itself, walk in that light, and transmit it likewise to others. It is perhaps prudent to remember that the stage of discipleship is, in many respects, the most arduous portion of the entire ladder of evolution. The solar angel is unceasingly in deep meditation. The impulses of energy emanating from him are increasing in vibratory rate and becoming progressively more potent. This energy affects, with increasing intensity, the forms through which the soul seeks expression and endeavors to control. This brings me to the consideration of the seventh point I established in my earlier analysis of Rule 1. I stated, the soul's meditation is rhythmic and cyclic in its nature, as is all else in the cosmos. The soul breathes, and its form lives thereby. The rhythmic nature of the soul's meditation must not be overlooked in the life of the aspirant. There is an ebb and flow in all nature, and in the tides of the ocean, we possess a magnificent portrayal of an eternal law. As the aspirant adjusts himself to the tides of the soul life, he begins to realize that there is ever an influx, a vitalizing and a stimulating, which is followed by an efflux, as certain and inevitable as the immutable laws of force. This ebb and flow can be observed functioning in the processes of death and incarnation. It can be discerned also throughout the entire process of a man's lives. For some lives appear static and uneventful, slow and inert from the angle of the soul's experience, whilst others are vibrant, replete with experience and growth. This should be remembered by all of you who are workers when you seek to aid others in living rightly. Are they on the ebb, or are they being subjected to the flow of soul energy? Are they passing through a period of temporary quiescence, preparatory to greater impulse and effort, wherein the work to be done must be that of strengthening and stabilizing to enable them to stand in spiritual being? Or are they being subjected to a cyclic inflow of forces? In the latter case, the worker must seek to aid in the direction and utilization of the energy which, if mismanaged, will eventuate in wrecked lives, but which, when wisely utilized, will produce full and fruitful service. The aforementioned thoughts can also be applied by the student of humanity to the great racial cycles, and much of interest will be discovered. Furthermore, and of more vital importance to us, these cyclic impulses in the life of the disciple occur with greater frequency, speed, and forcefulness than in the life of the average man. They alternate with distressing rapidity. The hill and valley experience of the mystic is but one mode of expressing this ebb and flow. At times, the disciple walks in the sunlight, and at other times in the darkness. Sometimes he knows the joy of full communion, and again all seems dull and sterile. His service is on occasion a fruitful and satisfying experience wherein he appears able to truly aid. At other times, he feels that he has naught to offer, and his service seems arid and apparently devoid of results. All is clear to him on certain days, and he seems to stand upon the mountain top, gazing out over a sunlit landscape where all is lucid to his vision. He knows and feels himself to be a son of God. Later, however, the clouds seem to descend. He becomes sure of nothing and appears to know nothing. He walks in the sunlight and is almost overpowered by the brilliance and heat of the solar rays, wondering how long this uneven experience and the violent alternation of these opposites is destined to continue. However, once he comprehends the fact that he is merely observing the effect of cyclic impulses and the impact of the soul's meditation upon his form nature, the significance becomes clear. He realizes it is the form aspect that is faltering in its response, reacting to energy with irregularity. He then discovers that once he can abide within soul consciousness and attain that high altitude at will, the vicissitudes of the form life shall not affect him. He subsequently perceives the razor-edged path leading from the plane of physical existence to the realm of the soul. He finds that when he traverses it with steadfastness, it guides him out of the mutable world of the senses into the clear light of day and into the world of reality. The form aspect of life then becomes for him merely a field of service, rather than a field of sensuous perception. Let the student ponder this final assertion. Let his aim be to live as a soul. Consequently, the cyclic impulses emanating from the soul are recognized as impulses for which he bears responsibility and which he has projected. He then understands himself to be the initiating cause, no longer subject to the effects. Viewed from another perspective, we discern two factors: the breath and the form which that breath energizes and impels into activity. Upon careful study, it becomes apparent that for eons we have identified ourselves with the form. We have emphasized the effects of the imparted activity, yet have neither understood the nature of the breath nor known the nature of the one who breathes. In our present work, we concern ourselves with that one who, breathing rhythmically, shall impel the form into right action and proper control. This constitutes our objective and our goal. Nevertheless, a correct understanding is necessary if we are to intelligently appreciate our task and its effects. Much more might be expounded regarding this rule, yet sufficient has been provided herein for the average applicant to discipleship to consider, and upon which to base action. Are not the majority of us average? If we deem ourselves otherwise, we sever ourselves from others and become guilty of the sin of separateness, the one true iniquity. An appreciation of the preceding thoughts should instill within the aspirant a realization of the value of his meditative work, while the concept of a cyclic response to soul impulse underpins the activities of a morning meditation, a noonday recollection, and an evening review. A greater ebb and flow is also indicated in the two phases of the full moon and the new moon. Let this be borne in mind. May there be a full and steady interplay of cyclic force from the kingdom of spirit upon each of us, summoning us into the realm of light, love, and service, and eliciting a cyclic response from every individual. May there be a constant interchange between those who teach and the disciple who seeks instruction. Much preliminary work must be undertaken. The disciple on the physical plane and the inner teacher must acquire some mutual familiarity and attune themselves to each other's vibration. Teachers on the inner planes face significant challenges due to the slowness of the mental processes of students within physical bodies. Yet confidence and trust will establish the proper vibration, which will eventually yield accurate work. Conversely, a lack of faith, calmness, or application, and the presence of emotional unrest will serve as hindrances. Those on the inner side require great patience in dealing with all who must, for lack of superior material, be utilized. Some physical injudiciousness may render the physical body unreceptive. Some worry or anxiety may cause the astral body to vibrate to a rhythm incompatible with the proper reception of the inner purpose. Some prejudice, criticism, or pride may be present that renders the mental vehicle useless. Aspirants to this arduous work must monitor themselves with infinite care, maintaining inner serenity, peace, and a mental pliability that will facilitate their utility in the guarding and guiding of humanity. The following rules might therefore be advanced. It is essential that there be an endeavor to arrive at absolute purity of motive. The ability to enter the silence of the high places will ensue. The stilling of the mind depends upon the law of rhythm. If you are vibrating in many directions and registering thoughts from all sides, this law will be unable to affect you. Balance and poise must be restored before equilibrium can be achieved. The law of vibration and the study of atomic substance are closely intertwined. When more is known regarding these atoms and their action, reaction, and interaction, humanity will control their bodies scientifically, synchronizing the laws of vibration and of rhythm. They are identical and yet dissimilar. They are phases of the law of gravitation. The earth is itself an entity which, by the force of will, binds all things to itself. This is an obscure matter. Little has been ascertained regarding it as yet. The inbreathing and outbreathing of the earth entity potently affects vibration, that is, the vibration of physical plane matter. There exists, furthermore, a connection between this and the moon. Those members of humanity who are specifically under lunar influence respond to this attraction more than any others, and they are difficult to utilize as transmitters. The silence that arises from inner calm is the state to be cultivated. Aspirants are urged to remember that the time will come when they, too, will form part of the group of teachers on the inner side of the veil. If, therefore, they have not learned the silence born of strength and knowledge, how will they endure the apparent lack of communication that they will then discover exists between them and those on the outer side? Learn, therefore, how to maintain silence, or your utility will be hampered by astral agitation when on the other side of death. Remember always that a lack of calm in daily life prevents the teachers on egoic levels from reaching you. Endeavor, therefore, to remain quiescent as life unfolds. Work, toil, strive, and aspire, yet maintain inner calm. Withdraw steadily into interior work and thus cultivate responsiveness to the higher planes. A perfect steadiness of inner poise is what the masters require in those whom they seek to utilize. It is an inner poise that adheres to the vision, yet performs its outer work on the physical plane with a concentrated attention of the physical brain, an attention that is in no way diverted by inner receptiveness. It involves a dual activity. Learn to control thought. It is necessary to guard your thinking. These are days when the race as a whole is becoming sensitive, telepathic, and responsive to the interplay of thought. The time approaches when thought shall become public property, and others will sense that which you think. Thought must, therefore, be carefully guarded. Those who are contacting higher truths and becoming sensitive to the universal mind must protect portions of their knowledge from the intrusion of other minds. Aspirants must learn to inhibit certain thoughts and prevent specific knowledge from filtering into the public consciousness when in contact with their fellow men. It is, of course, of vital interest to appreciate the significance of the phrase scatters not his force. There are manifold lines of activity into which the soul-inspired disciple may direct himself. Assurance regarding these varying lines of activity is difficult to attain, and every aspirant experiences perplexity. Let us posit the problem in the form of a question, relegating it to the plane of everyday endeavor, as we are not yet in a position to comprehend in what manner a soul might scatter its forces on the higher planes. What is the criterion whereby a man may know which of several lines of activity is the correct course to pursue? Is there, in other words, a revealing factor that will enable a man to choose the right action unerringly and proceed upon the proper path? The question bears no reference to a choice existing between the path of spiritual endeavor and the way of the man of the world. Rather, it refers to right action when confronted with a choice. There is no question but that a man is faced, in his progress, with increasingly subtle distinctions. The crude discrimination between right and wrong which occupies the child soul is succeeded by the finer distinctions of right, or of more right, of high or higher, and the moral or spiritual values must be confronted with the most meticulous spiritual perception. In the stress and toil of existence and in the unceasing pressure upon each individual from those who constitute his group, the complexity of the problem is immense. In the resolution of such problems, certain broad discriminations can precede the more subtle, and when these determinations have been made, the more subtle can then assume their place. The choice between selfish and unselfish action is the most obvious sequence to the choice between right and wrong, and is readily settled by the honest soul. A choice which involves discrimination between individual benefit and group responsibility rapidly eliminates other factors, and is facile to the man who shoulders his just responsibility. Observe the employment of the phrase just responsibility. We are considering the normal, sane man, and not the overconscientious, morbid fanatic. There follows next the distinction between the expedient, involving factors of physical plane relations of business and of finance, leading up to a consideration of the highest good for all parties concerned. However, having arrived at a certain position through this triple eliminative process, instances arise where a choice still remains in which neither common sense nor logical, discerning reason appears to assist. The desire is solely to do the right thing. The intent is to act in the highest possible manner and to adopt that line of action which will produce the ultimate good of the group, apart from personal considerations altogether. Yet light upon the path which must be trodden is not perceived. The portal which should be entered remains unrecognized, and the man persists in a state of constant indecision. What then must be done? One of two things. First, the aspirant can follow his inclination and choose that line of action out of the residue of possible lines which appears to him the wisest and the best. This entails a belief in the operation of the law of karma, and also a demonstration of that firm decisiveness which is the optimal manner in which his personality can learn to abide by the decisions of his own soul. It involves also the ability to proceed upon the grounds of the decision made, and thus to abide by the results without forebodings or regrets. Secondly, he can wait, resting back upon an inner sense of direction, knowing that in due time he will ascertain, through the closing of all doors save one, which is the way he should go. For there is only one open door through which such a man can proceed. Intuition is requisite for its recognition. In the first instance, mistakes may be made, and the man thereby learns and is enriched. In the second instance, mistakes are impossible and only right action can be taken. It is obvious, therefore, that all resolves itself into an understanding of one's place upon the ladder of evolution. Only the highly advanced man can know the times and seasons and can adequately discern the subtle distinction between a psychic inclination and the intuition. In considering these two methods of ultimate decision, let not the man who should employ his common sense and take a line of action based upon the use of the concrete mind practice the higher method of waiting for a door to open. He presumes too much regarding the station he currently occupies. He must learn through right decision and the right use of the mind to resolve his problems. Through this method he will grow, for the roots of intuitive knowledge are laid deep within the soul, and the soul, therefore, must be contacted before the intuition can operate. One hint only can here be offered. The intuition ever concerns itself with group activity and not with petty personal affairs. If you are still a man centered in the personality, recognize it, and with the equipment available, govern your actions. If you know yourself to be functioning as a soul and are lost in the interest of others, untrammeled by selfish desire, then your just obligation will be met, your responsibilities shouldered, your group work carried forward, and the way will unfold before you, whilst you do the next thing and fulfill the next duty. Out of duty, perfectly performed, will emerge those larger duties which we term world work. Out of the bearing of family responsibilities will come that strengthening of our shoulders which will enable us to carry those of the larger group. What, then, is the criterion? For the high-grade aspirant, let me reiterate, the choice of action depends upon a sound use of the lower mind, the employment of a sane common sense, and the forgetfulness of selfish comfort and personal ambition. This leads to the fulfillment of duty. For the disciple, there will be the automatic and necessary carrying forward of all the above, plus the use of the intuition which will reveal the moment when wider group responsibilities can be justly shouldered and carried simultaneously with those of the smaller group. Ponder on this. The intuition reveals not the way ambition can be fed, nor the manner in which desire for selfish advancement can be gratified. Rule 2. When the shadow hath responded, in meditation deep the work proceedeth. The lower light is thrown upward. The greater light illuminates the three, and the work of the four proceedeth. Hindrances to occult study. This rule is one of the most difficult in the book and yet one of the most comprehensive. It will require some time for us rightly to handle it. We find in it an interesting illustration of the microcosmic correspondence to the macrocosm. It can be elucidated in two ways in relation to the light it mentions. Reference is made to the greater light which illuminates the three and, secondly, to the projection upward of the lower light. The greater light is that of the soul, which is light itself illuminating the manifestation of the threefold personality. Herein lies the correspondence to the macrocosm as it is symbolized for us in God, the manifesting light of the solar system. The solar system is 3 in 1, or 1 in 3, and the light of the Logos illuminates the whole. The lower light is that which is hidden within the human being upon the physical plane. This light, at a certain stage of man's experience, is awakened throughout the physical body and blends eventually with the greater light. The light and life of God Himself may emanate from the central spiritual sun, but it is only as the light within the solar system itself is awakened and aroused that there will ensue that eventual blazing forth which will typify the glory of the sun shining in its strength. Similarly, the light of the soul may emanate from the monad, but it is only as the light within the little system is awakened and aroused that there will occur the eventual shining forth of a Son of God. In these instructions, however, we are dealing primarily with the microcosm and the light within it. We shall not enlarge upon the macrocosmic analogies. In considering this second rule, we must note that a conscious relation has been established between the soul and its shadow, the man on the physical plane. Both have been meditating. Students would do well to note this and to remember that one of the objectives of the daily meditation is to enable the brain and mind to vibrate in unison with the soul as it seeks in meditation deep to communicate with its reflection. The correspondence to this relation or synchronizing vibration is interesting. Soul-man on the physical plane. Mind-brain. Pineal gland, pituitary body. The relationship between the centers and their synchronization is of profound interest. Within it is epitomized the evolution of the race as well as that of the racial unit man. head center base of the spine, heart center solar plexus, throat center sacral center. In the foregoing lies a hint for the more advanced student. It is also symbolized for us in the relationship between the Eastern and Western hemispheres, and between those great bodies of truth which we designate as religion and science. The life of meditation proceeds, and the rapport between the soul and its triple instrument becomes steadily closer, and the resulting vibration more powerful. The number of incarnations this process will entail depends upon various factors, too numerous to enumerate here, yet which the student will find useful to consider. Let him tabulate the factors he deems necessary to take into account as he seeks to determine his evolutionary standpoint. The result of this response is a reorientation of the lower man, aimed at producing a synthesis of the three and the one, so that the work of the four may proceed. Herein one finds the reflection consummated in the microcosm of that with which the solar logos commenced, the sacred four of the cosmos. Man, in his turn, becomes a sacred four, spirit and the three of manifestation. For words should be pondered upon here: communication, response, reorientation, union. The old commentary expresses it in the following terms. When communion is established, words are forthwith employed, and mantric law assumes its rightful place, provided that the one communicates the words and the three remain in silence. When response is recognized as emanating from the three, the one, in silence, listens. The roles are reversed. A threefold word issues from the triple form. A turning round is effected. The eyes no longer look upon the world of form. They turn within, focus the light, and see, revealed, an inner world of being. With this, the mana stills itself, for eyes and mind are one. The heart no longer beats in tune with low desire, nor wastes its love upon the things that veil and hide the real. It beats with a new rhythm. It pours its love upon the real, and Maya fades away. Kama and heart are closely allied. Love and desire form one whole, one seen at night, the other in the light of day. When fire and love and mind submit themselves, sounding the threefold word, there comes a response. The one enunciates a word which drowns the triple sound. God speaks. A quivering and a shaking in the form responds. The new stands forth, a man remade, the form rebuilt, the house prepared. The fires unite, and great is the light that shines. The three merge with the one, and through the blaze, a fourfold fire is seen. In this pictorial imagery, which I have sought to convey in modern English, the sages of old embodied an idea. The old commentary from which these words are taken possesses no assignable date. Should I endeavor to state its age, I possess no means of proving the truth of my words, and hence would be confronted with credulity, a condition aspirants must avoid in their search for the essential and real. I have sought in the above few phrases to convey the essence of what is expressed in the commentary, through the medium of a few symbols and a cryptic text. These ancient scriptures are not read in the manner that modern students read books. They are seen, touched, and realized. The meaning is disclosed in a flash. Let me illustrate. The words "the one enunciates the word which drowns the triple sound" are depicted by a shaft of light ending in a symbolic word in gold, superimposed over three symbols in black, rose, and green. Thus are the secrets guarded with care. I deemed it might be of interest to students to know this much regarding this ancient textbook of the adepts. Our consideration of this rule will fall into two parts. the relation between the soul and the personality. This will be addressed particularly with reference to meditation in daily life, rather than from the theoretical and academic perspectives. The significance of the words, "the lower light is thrown upward." These deal with the centers and the Kundalini fire. I wish to point out here the advisability of each student arriving at an understanding of his etheric body, and this for certain reasons. First, the etheric body is the next aspect of the world substance to be studied by scientists and investigators. This development will be hastened if thinking men and women can formulate intelligent ideas concerning this compelling subject. We can aid in the revelation of the truth by our clear thinking. From the standpoint of the present pronouncements regarding the ether, scientists will eventually arrive at an understanding of etheric forms or bodies. Secondly, the etheric body is composed of force currents, and within it lie vital centers linked by lines of force with each other and with the nervous system of the physical man. Through these lines of force, it is connected also with the etheric body of the environing system. Note that in this lies the basis for a belief in immortality, for the law of brotherhood or unity, and for astrological truth. Thirdly, there is the necessity of realizing that the etheric body is vitalized and controlled by thought and can be brought into full functioning activity. This is accomplished by right thinking, and not by breathing exercises or manual constriction of the nostrils. When this is grasped, much dangerous practice will be avoided, and individuals will come into a normal and safe control of that most potent instrument, the vital body. That this end may rapidly be consummated is my earnest wish. Occult study is of profound importance, and students of these sciences must bring to bear upon them all that they possess of mental application and concentrated attention. It involves also the steady working out of the truths learned. Occult study, as understood in the Occident, is intellectually investigated but not practically followed. Theoretically, some glimmering of light may be appreciated by the man who aspires to the occult path, but the systematic application of the laws involved has made scant progress as yet. Wherein lies the hindrance? It may be of value if we study three things: the Occidental hindrances to correct occult study, how these hindrances may be surmounted, certain measures the aspirant may safely undertake in equipping himself for treading the occult path, for that is the stage, and for the majority the only stage at present possible. One of the main hindrances to the correct apprehension of the laws of occultism and their practical application lies in the comparative newness of the Occident, and the rapid changes which have been the outstanding feature of European and American civilization. The history of Europe dates back a mere 3,000 years, and that of America, as we know, barely as many centuries. Occultism flourishes in a prepared atmosphere, in a highly magnetized environment, and in a settled condition which is the result of age-long work upon the mental plane. This is one reason why India provides such an adequate school of endeavor. Their knowledge of occultism dates back tens of thousands of years, and time has set its mark even upon the physique of the people, providing them with bodies which offer not that resistance which Occidental bodies so often present. The environment has been long permeated with the strong vibrations of the great ones who reside within its borders and who, in their passage to and fro, and through their proximity, continuously magnetize the environing ether. This in itself affords another line of least resistance, for this etheric magnetization affects the etheric bodies of the contacted population. These two facts, of time and of high vibration, result in that stability of rhythm which facilitates occult work, and offer a quiet field for mantric and ceremonial enterprise. These conditions are not to be found in the West, where a perpetual state of flux permeates every branch of existence. Here, the frequent and rapid shifting of the scene of action generates extensive disturbances that militate against any endeavor of a magical nature. The volume of force requisite to achieve specific results does not justify their expenditure, and time has been permitted to elapse in an endeavor to induce an equilibrating effect. The zenith of this disturbed condition has been traversed, and a more... Do you want access to this and all the complete audiobooks on the channel, plus the ebook version? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code in the left corner of the screen to access our library, where you can listen to your favorite esoteric books without ad interruptions, lock your screen, or use other apps while the narration plays, and even download the ebook version to follow along as you listen. Listen on your computer via web browser, or download the app from the Play Store. After subscribing, you will receive an email with your login details, password, and step-by-step instructions on how to access the books through the Hotmart app.